Pokemon has always been one of my favorite games since childhood, but what if I could take this black and white masterpiece and turn it into 3D? And without sounding too cliche, relive my childhood memories and play the game as I originally remembered it 20 years ago. Remaking the original Pokemon game is no easy task, so I had to set up some boundaries. My game will have Pallet Town, Oak Slab, and the first battle against your rival, all recreated in 3D. Also, I can't spend any money, except for Ash's Pokemon hat I bought off Amazon. I was hoping it might get me in the zone.
Pidgeotto! I choose you!
Professor Oak Slab has different looks across the games in the show, but in the red and blue games, it undeniably looks like this. So I modeled the 3D version of it in Blender. I could have said this was okay to start, but I've been wanting to experiment with the Toon shader. It's what gives Breath of the Wild and some Pokemon games their toony look. It basically makes 3D games look a little less 3D. There's also a signpost, grass patch, and this guy outside of Oak Slab. I made my own 3D signpost, and I made a grass patch using low poly flowers and grass. As for this guy, we'll get back to him. Pokemon Red and Blue are so old that the whole game is free online, and I used it as a reference a lot when building out Pallet Town. Water is typically a lot trickier to make in 3D because it uses shaders, which can be complicated. Thankfully I didn't have to make a shader myself, because I found a pretty good free one online. I built out Ash and Gary's houses, which I just copied and pasted for both of them. Next up was adding a controllable character, so I could actually move it around. In Smash Bros. Ultimate, there's a Pokemon trainer character, and that model is available online, so thanks. I'm a horrible animator, and started off with this thing, but hey, it worked at least. There's 2 NPCs in Pallet Town, so I used the girl Pokemon trainer model, and added this guy in front of Oak Slab. Now that things were kinda coming together, I needed a dialogue system. The entire script from the game is actually available online, and so are the dialogue boxes, and font from the game. I wrote a simple dialogue script and it worked, great. Okay, I fixed it. And even added dialogue for signs too. When you try to leave Pallet Town in the original game, Professor Oak stops you. Since I didn't want to model him, I was lucky to find a Professor Oak model already online, and gave him my questionable walking animations. I actually learned around this time that Mixamo's animations work with custom models. I didn't end up keeping it though, as I found Ash's walk had a bit too much swagger for a Pokemon game. To trigger Oak's appearance, I added this invisible block, and it will cause him to stop you when you try leaving Pallet Town. I also used Unity's particle system to add falling leaves. Overall, Pallet Town turned out pretty decent, and I was ready to move on to making Oak Slab and battling with your first Pokemon. Oak Slab has a lot of stuff going on in it. I knew the hardest part would be choosing Pokemon in 3D, but you'll see that soon. I started off with a bare wooden floor, and found these great bookshelf models. They look pretty good in game, so I made a simple table and placed the starter Pokeballs on it. If you've never played Pokemon, you can choose either Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur to start, from one of the 3 Pokeballs. But before you do that, there's this dialogue scene with your rival. I added him to the lab, and added another invisible block, so it'll trigger that scene when you walk towards it. And obviously all that dialogue comes from that handy script I found. Now I needed to find a way to add Pokemon to the game. After a failed Blender attempt at modeling it myself, I found great models for all the starter Pokemon. Thanks Random Talking Bush, you're a lifesaver. Once I applied the Toon shader, they were looking really nice. I wrote code that showed the right description for each Pokemon, and found sound effects for all of their cries. I tried to be pretty accurate to the real game, although I added a cool spinning effect for each Pokemon. Typically Oak asks you if you want that Pokemon after you see it. Since my dialogue system didn't support that, I added a yes or no box, and it fires an action to save your choice if you choose yes. All Pokemon have a weakness. Water beats fire, fire beats grass, and grass beats water. So if I choose a Bulbasaur, I made it so Gary will choose your weak type, in this case, Charmander. Then he'll battle you with his Pokemon, and it does this crazy transition. I googled how to do it in Unity, but lots of the results talked about shaders, and that seemed hard, so I literally stretched out a black bar to cover the scene. It worked pretty well though. Battles are probably the best part of Pokemon games, and that's also true for the original game. I placed Ash across from Gary. Since Gary's Pokemon is based on what you choose, I couldn't cut corners, and had to position all 3 starters depending on which he gets. I used the Unity particle system to make a Pokeball effect, so Gary will move out of the way and I will show that effect when revealing his Pokemon. And I basically did that all over again for my Pokemon. Battling was kinda coming along, but I had ideas to make it better. If you remember the custom Mixamo animations from before, I gave Charmander this cool fighting stance animation. I wanted to do something like that with Squirtle, but... oh. Mixamo didn't support giving Squirtle a custom animation, so I had to make my own. Someone on my Discord suggested Gary looked a little stiff, so I gave him a new animation too. Now I needed to make battling actually work. Pokemon battles are turn-based, so each player gets a turn to choose a move and use it. The first thing was to make an HP bar that goes down when you get hit. This required some code, so I started building a turn-based system. Each Pokemon has 2 moves you can choose from the start. I know in the original game they all start with basic moves, but I diverged a little and gave them fun moves like Flamethrower and Razor Leaf. I also found this cool camera shake effect for moves, and added a flicker whenever a Pokemon was hit. Whenever you choose a move, a particle effect plays. It looks like Bulbasaur used subscribe. Jokes aside, only a small % of you are subscribed, and it is free. Just saying. I also made Squirtle's water gun move, which was basically a blue flamethrower, and his tail whip move, which I thought turned out pretty cool in the game. I didn't have a win or lose state yet in my game, so once the battle ended, it went into negative numbers. I fixed that by having a new Gary appear once the battle was over and move in the frame. And if you win, it plays that catchy victory music. Unfortunately, if you lose, you don't get to hear anything except your own shame. Since this was just a demo, I made an end screen after the battle that lets you play again. I had a lot of fun making this remake, and if Nintendo doesn't sue me, you can find the download link below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you didn't dislike this video, consider liking it and subscribing.